A major security breach at Manchester United as a protest stops today's match against Liverpool. Hundreds of protesters storm the pitch, climbing goalposts and setting off flares in anger at the American owners of the club.
With Man United, we don't need to be part of the Super League. We don't need to be governed and controlled by Americans. They've got their own sports, get on with it.
Also on the programme, music fans back at gigs and tests instead of isolation. How COVID rules could be changing. Britain sends more ventilators to India, but cases continue to soar and deaths break more grim records.
Movement there from Harder, heading at pace. It's gone through!
And an elated Chelsea reached their first Women's Champions League final with victory over Bayern Munich.
This is ITV News with Kylie, Pentelow.
Good evening. The divide between Manchester United's owners and the club's supporters is so big, many at today's protest wanted to stop their own side from playing football. That they succeeded will go down as another victory for fans in the battle that was ignited by the proposed European Super League. Today, security at Old Trafford was overwhelmed, leading to a storming of the pitch. And although most protested peacefully, 2 police officers were injured, one needing hospital treatment. Chris Scudder witnessed it all at Old Trafford.
Oh my God!
Even the protesters were stunned it got to this point. Hundreds of them on the pitch, climbing the goal frame, even scoring goals, unchallenged. Just 2 hours before Manchester United were due to face Liverpool at Old Trafford, this was a security breach never before seen at a Premier League ground. Some workers locked themselves inside rooms, fearing for their safety. Outside, stadium staff were outnumbered and confused.
What happened earlier? Did they get inside?
Did they go inside? Yeah.
How did they get inside?
No, sorry, no.
This was a coordinated mission. United's players were prevented from leaving their hotel by a crowd of 200 protesters. There was no way this match would now start on time, if at all.
We had to make a stand. We don't want anything violent, we don't want anybody hurt or whatever, but we've been ignored for too long and we feel there's nothing else we can do.
The fans, we're the ones who care about the club, that's why we're here now, because we want them out there. They don't care about the club. We don't need to be governed and controlled by Americans. They've got their own sports, get on with it.
The aim was disruption, a protest against the American Glazer family who own United and recently tried and failed to take them into a European Super League. There's no doubt that the majority of United fans want change at their club, but there are differing opinions on the best way to achieve that goal. The Premier League reacted with a statement saying, "We understand and respect the strength of feeling but condemn all acts of violence, criminal damage and trespass, especially given the associated COVID-19 breaches. We sympathise with the police and stewards who had to deal with a dangerous situation that should have no place in football." Trouble broke out among the mob outside Old Trafford. Barriers were hurled at police, bottles were thrown and there were some injuries. Police eventually turned up in enough numbers to regain some control tonight. There are questions for them, though, over why they were seemingly so woefully unprepared for a protest on this scale. So, for the second time in a fortnight, fan power has won the day. But the message tonight is even stronger than it was when the recent fan protests blocked the European Super League. Apology not accepted. That was the message from Manchester United fans today. But the ability to hijack and stop a key match will set alarm bells ringing for the game's governing bodies. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
We all know by now the procedures we have to follow if we come into contact with someone who has coronavirus, but those isolation rules could be changing. The government's backing a new study in which 40,000 people will be told to take daily rapid tests instead. If they get a negative result, they carry on with life as normal. But some senior scientists have deep reservations, as Geraint Vincent reports.
Taking a lateral flow test yourself is something many of us have already done, but next month the government's going to invite 40,000 people who've been in close contact with someone with COVID to test themselves every morning for 7 days. If their results are negative and they don't show any symptoms, they won't have to quarantine.
If daily testing is proven to be safe and effective, then we will be able to reduce the need for people who are who test negative, who are not carrying the infection, from having to self-isolate. And that will allow us to return to greater normality.
NHS research has found that the number of people entering self-isolation when required has been low. Those in financial hardship and parents of young children are among those groups less likely to follow the rules.
This scheme offers a way of restricting infections without all of the difficulties of self-isolation. But it depends on tests which we know aren't always accurate, and it would rely on people who've been contacted being diligent enough to do the tests properly.
And you'll need 2 doses.
The success of the vaccination programme in the UK has reduced the risk presented by COVID. But when it comes to controlling outbreaks, well-managed quarantines are a tried and tested measure.
But the vaccine's done its job, which means that the number of people now who the government would have to spend money on to help them to self-isolate is much lower, very affordable for the exchequer, very affordable and very worth it. Now, that's what has been effective in other countries, so why not just do that?
Tonight in Liverpool, another signpost on the road to a return to normality, a gig with a crowd, all of whom had negative lateral flow test results yesterday. The government's trialling a new system for containing future outbreaks, which may not be perfect, but might be good enough. Geraint Vincent, ITV News.
India has again broken its record for the highest daily death toll as the country struggles with soaring coronavirus cases. The UK is sending a further 1,000 ventilators to India as hospitals there remain overwhelmed with acute shortages of oxygen. But Britain and other developed nations are coming under pressure to do more, as Martha Fairley reports.
For too many who have been taken by COVID, there is no time for a proper funeral. As India's coronavirus death toll reaches a new record high, it is left to staff at this mass cremation site to comfort the families who mourn. International aid is starting to arrive. This plane from France landed in New Delhi today with 28 tons of essential equipment, much needed by frontline doctors working on the COVID wards.
The issue that we face in the hospitals, even the best, most well-equipped hospitals with great infrastructure, is the lack of ventilators, the lack of doctors, the lack of manpower to treat all the patients that are coming in. It's been a huge sudden surge in the number of cases and we were not well prepared for it.
The UK government has this evening announced it'll be sending another 1,000 ventilators to Indian hospitals, in addition to the 200 sent last week, along with oxygen concentrators and oxygen generation units. While British-based charities are also fundraising to send specialist equipment to where it's needed most.
We started the appeal on Monday afternoon with a donation from His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales. We've had support from people like Joss Butler, the cricketer. Katy Perry, our ambassador, has supported us on social media. And we've raised nearly £1.6 million in the past few days.
India is on a drive to give all adults their COVID vaccine, but less than 10% have received their first dose. And with a shortage of supplies, they're looking to the international community for help. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
Later this week, Boris Johnson will meet the Indian Prime Minister to discuss cooperation between the countries. And India is likely to be high on the agenda with a G7 meeting also this week. And for more on this, our political correspondent Hannah Miller has joined me. What sort of extra help, Hannah, might the developed nations look to offer?
Well, the Foreign Secretary is meeting with the Indian Foreign Minister as soon as tomorrow, Kylie. Dominic Raab said today he will look carefully at any requests that the Indian authorities come forward with. At the moment, he said there hasn't been a request for any extra doses of vaccine. The Health Secretary saying earlier in the week that we don't have any excess doses to just hand over. But one of the government's aims for this week is to get what they call a strong collective commitment to fair vaccine access around the world. We're contributing to a system called COVAX, which helps poorer countries to get access to the vaccine. But as some of the world's biggest economies come together this week, those calls for them to redistribute the vaccine are only going to grow. As the pandemic eases off here in the UK, the imperative for the UK government to tackle it internationally becomes ever clearer.
Hannah, thank you very much. Britain has denied suggestions on Iranian television that a deal has been reached to free Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe. The Foreign Office says negotiations over the British-Iranian charity worker are continuing. Nazanin's husband, Richard, welcomed the signals from Tehran as a good sign. And tributes have been paid to a wonderful, compassionate man from Salford who was killed in a crush at a Jewish festival in Israel. 24-year-old Moshe Bergman had been studying in the country before Friday's stampede. In sport, Chelsea have reached the Women's Champions League for the first time in their history, needing to overturn a 2-1 first-leg deficit against Bayern Munich. They left it late, but ran out 4-1 winners. Nithya Rajan was watching.
Chelsea coming out to face Bayern Munich.
Only a win would do for Chelsea today, but if they felt the pressure, you wouldn't know it. Chelsea's boss Emma Hayes admitted she'd be pacing up and down the touchline to bring her heart rate down. Perhaps this helped.
To Kirby, can she finish it? Yes!
Elation as her team took the lead within the first 10 minutes through Fran Kirby. But Bayern's Sarah Zadrazil pushed back.
And it comes out to Zadrazil! Oh, that's special!
So Yoonji's strike wasn't as spectacular.
She couldn't get it over the wall. And then drives it in! It's gone!
But just as effective. The tie now evenly poised. Extra time was looming until Pernilla Harder's header edged Chelsea in front. Bayern chased another goal, leaving their keeper upfield. But it was Chelsea who scored the decisive goal.
Now they can surely finish it! Fran Kirby! It's in!
They'll now meet Barcelona in their first ever Champions League final. Nithya Rajan, ITV News.
Finally, Lewis Hamilton has won the Portuguese Grand Prix, his 97th career victory. He passed both Valtteri Bottas and Max Verstappen to claim the top spot. The win gives Hamilton an 8-point championship lead. And that's it from all of us here. Good night.